Mychal. I am a sommelier, tarot card reader, and former ballerina.
I'm Suzanne. I am a writer, an author, and a teacher.
And this episode is P for protection. So we always like to start out by saying that this is a safe space. This is a non-judgmental zone where we are just sharing our own experiences and knowledge on these topics. And at the very least, we just want you to be entertained.
So what are we drinking tonight, Mychal?
Tonight, I figured that I would kind of go a little bit on a theme. So I have chosen a wine from the Chateauneuf de Pape area of France, which is just fun to say, number one. And the producer's name for this is Chateau Beaucastel, also fun to say. And the reason why I chose this wine, number one, Chateauneuf de Pape translates to House of the Pope. This is an area in France where back in the day, the Pope really had his home there. So the wine that was created and made there in this specific plot of land, it's a very coveted small amount of land, was reserved for the Pope. So the wine that I chose in particular is a bigger, bolder expression, which, as you will see, is something that you will have to really embody in the subject that we are talking about.
So protection basically means to keep safe, to guard against. And a couple of episodes ago, we told you that we would not leave you unprotected in terms of information. So that is what this episode is about. And why it's woo is because we are talking about protection from things you can't see, from spheres of influence you may not be fully aware exist.
Yeah, so a baseball bat won't do. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you're the one who has experience with a ghost.
Okay, I'm going to tell you a baseball bat will not do.
So sit back and we're going to figure out how to be protected.
So, Suzanne, what is the definition of protection?
Protection is to keep safe, to guard against. And so I think the next thing is what makes this woo is what we're protecting against in this situation are things that are
intangible,
invisible.
You can't beat off with a bat.
You do like the bat.
I do like the bat.
Yes, exactly. Things that are metaphysical, magical, mystical, spiritual.
All the things. All the things.
All the woo things.
That's true. I do want to make you aware, we have been talking about this and that we realize that this is a heavy topic and we don't want you to be scared. The point is that we don't want you to be scared. As Ryan Hall, the weatherman on YouTube says, don't be scared, be prepared. And that is kind of what we're trying to help assist with.
And even more so than that, informed, because you might not be aware that there are, I think one of the underlying points of the woo
world
mentality is that everything is alive, everything is interacting, everything has wants and needs and desires and agendas. Mm-hmm. And so it may be that a person just gets stuck between an entity and an agenda. And so to that end, we're going to talk about sort of the three realms, if you will, of things that you might want to be protected against.
Yeah. And these are, keep in mind, we're keeping it fairly general. You can definitely dive deep into any one of these subjects. So, yes.
Yes, you can get a PhD.
Yeah.
So I would say that we have things that used to be human.
Yes.
So that would be ghosts.
That would be ghosts, spirits of that nature. Mm-hmm.
We have things that are other origin entities that are benevolent.
Yes.
And other origin entities that are malevolent.
Yes.
So
the good ones may not seem like a big deal to you, but, you may want to just feel comfortable in your own home and not want them in your house. So that could also be a thing, which is you have total right and ability to do.
Sovereignty over your space. That's my thought.
Yes, yes. And I, too, am like that. I don't like things just wandering about my house. So I've gotten very good about keeping my home space clear of even those kinds of things. So, yeah, for sure. And then, obviously, the not-so-great things are kind of speak for themselves. I would imagine you probably wouldn't want, I don't know that there's a whole lot of people who would want that in their home.
Yeah, especially with the uncontrolled part of
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
So every culture and every nationality, everybody has some sort of practice against whether they're considered the little people, the tall people, the trolls, the gargoyles, the mermaids, the mermen, the
Fairies.
fairies, the ghosts, the goblins, the vampires. We can just keep going on and also use them in a lot of different languages. But that is, whatever your cultural background is, you probably have kind of an understanding already. And even if you happen to be a wasp, you've heard of haints. So everybody has this understanding, at least did until the late 20th century, that we were sharing the world with other beings.
Or, I mean, if you want to get quantum physical about this, multi-dimensions, that there's these dimensions that lay on top of each other, and sometimes these dimensions interact. That would be another way to kind of think of it. Yeah.
So in all of this, in order to keep your body and your mind and your spirit and your space safe
Insane.
and sane, that is what this episode is about, is to give you that kind of information. So, Mychal, take it away.
Okay, so we have talked about my picture ghost. We've talked about my first interaction personally with the ghost and on all of that. And those had been really good interactions. My interaction after that was not so good. Also, to clarify, wasn't a ghost. And so it required me and my family needing to be armed with this kind of information of how to protect ourselves if we ever encountered something that had bad intentions. How do you deal with that? So that being said, it was presented to me in one way of having two different options. But since then, I've learned how to deal with it in other ways, in addition, based upon what I'm dealing with.
Your own experience.
Yeah, like you don't take the same antibiotic for all illnesses.
If you've ever seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer, in the sections where they would go and look up like specific, whatever the demon was, or the, whoever the monster du jour or for the week, and it would be like, okay, so they need this, this, and this. You have to do this particular spell and this particular combination of herbs on this particular day. Not so far off.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be as incredibly nuanced as that, but at the same time, it can be too. Just it really depends. We're talking very broadly.
Okay, so get more specific.
Okay, so more specific. In my particular situation, let's just start from the beginning, what I was presented with on how to protect my space, and then we'll kind of go into how I do it now, because I really do this on a daily basis, literally a daily basis. So, one.
She has Archangel Mychal on speed dial.
I do. He probably is tired of hearing from me now. I feel like he has like a very kind of snarky sense of humor, and that he just because he's tired of hearing from me all the time. He's like, yes, what now?
P.S. Angels don't get tired of hearing from you. That's just Michael's interpretation.
That's just me. That's just my own my own thoughts at work there. But beyond that, okay, so I was in need of something real of how to kind of deal with the situation. And I was told, and who I was told by was the medium that I had initially met and had a conversation with before that we've talked about. And
that would be the medium from Ghosts.
From the Ghosts episode, not from the show, Ghosts.
True point.
Yes. And so we gave him a call. This is what he said. He said, you have the ability to command these things to go, and mostly clearing your space and all that, it has to do with your intention and your phrasing, how you say things. Not that we're saying, weird things. It's literally that you're claiming your space back and saying, you are not invited. You are not allowed in this space. You need to go now.
but with major ferocity.
Yes. So I'm kind of holding back my voice a little bit because I'm speaking into a microphone and it would get really loud. Not that you have to scream this or anything, but like put your diaphragm in it, like that kind of thing, that you're speaking from your gut. Like I kind of always think of it a bit. I not only say these things, but I also am imagining like my own energy kind of blowing out the space like a bomb, almost like Gandalf the Grey from Lord of the Rings when he's like, "You shall not pass," like that kind of intensity of like intent.
But with her solar plexus shooting out lasers.
Yeah, pretty much. Solar plexus lasers.
At least that's how I imagine it.
Yeah, you're like, "Boo," like a bomb, energy bomb, clearing out the space, right? So that is one way to do it. In the case where you would have
Malevolence.
yes, and a very kind of different situation, it was also presented that if that doesn't work, and if you're dealing with something like what I was dealing with at the time, that you would...
You need power.
Yeah, you need real power, not just my own power behind this, that this was... I was calling on a religious background on this one and calling in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to go. But this is like, think of it, if we're talking about medicine, heavy-duty antibiotics for a really intense situation. This is not for just your regular house spirit ghost. So keep that in mind. So a different, to kind of give you some example, right, of how it can be different.
Just to put it into context, so the difference between you have some kids who throw rocks through your windows and run giggling off into the night versus you have someone stalking your house and
breaking in
and robbing you while you're at the opera or something.
Right. Very different kind of scenario.
Amateurs versus pros.
Yeah. But I've added in some other levels into this as I have, after 20 some odd years plus, that I have learned other things. And I have found that it's easier sometimes to just go ahead and be proactive, number one, and I will smudge my house. So you smudging stick.
As we, in fact, smudge this space before we record every time.
Exactly, right? So it's kind of preactive work here so a smudge stick is a bundle of dried sage, and that's the most traditional way, but you can also do this with Palo Santo as well. You can do this...
Hyssop, if you have it.
Yeah, you can do this with incense. You can use incense as things that kind of smoke in that way are known to have the spiritual quality and cleansing quality through multiple cultures, actually.
Yeah, and probably that relationship is the correspondence's concept of if you're trying to get rid of a spirit, having a smoke.
Right.
Because they are the same gaseous composition.
Right, exactly, that there's a connection there. I know, let's see, beyond that, I will use, like we were talking about Archangel Michael, I call on him quite frequently, especially if I find that something's a little bit more stubborn or just what I'm doing is not working as well. That will typically be my next step of who I call on, because he's known for being a protector, for, fighting against energy and all of that. So he has worked very well for me in the past, I have to say.
She's giving him a 5-star Yelp review.
I give him a lot of business, or at least I have in the past, that's for sure. So yeah, I call on him often for some things like that. So like I'm saying, that there's different levels based upon what you do or what you're in need of based upon what you're dealing with. But overall, it's hard for me to tell you what you might need to do if you are dealing with something. In that case, every culture has, like we were saying, a means of dealing with these kinds of things.
Absolutely. Iron, salt, words, water, basically all the things that you have seen in movies about vampires and read in fairy tales about monsters is rooted in this kind of understanding. But I think the other thing is really before you open that can of worms, before you decide that you are going to do whatever thing that just seems kind of fun at the moment, really stop and consider what is the best thing for you right now. Is your intuition telling you this is a good idea? Because if your intuition isn't, I would say perhaps step away. And that goes for most of the things that we've talked about in these episodes as well, because it might not be the right time for you.
Also, I think that depending on what kind of door you are considering opening, because this is literally,
Portal.
it's a portal, to be very specific about what it is that you are wanting to walk through that door.
And make sure you know how to close the door.
Yes.
Or in the case of many of these things, it's a fire hose.
Yeah.
Know how to turn off the fire hose.
Yes. No, absolutely. So there's a lot of just, don't treat any of this. It's like playing with fire in a lot of different ways. Just be smart about what and informed about what it is that you're using.
And I think maybe just close with respect. Just, again, back to the idea of woo, that everything is alive and everything is interacting and everything, has a memory and holds a grudge as well.
Yeah.
Which, half the fairy tales in the world that are about Jen are just about
exactly that. Yeah.
A little bit irritated at being kept
Locked up for forever.
Kept in bottles. But all of that to say, just be very intentional with what you are trying to create in your life. And it doesn't ever hurt to ask for protection and throw some salt around it.
Preemptively ask for protection. As I was saying, that is now a daily practice for me. This is something that I literally do every single day. I do say prayers at the end of my day, and one of the things that I include in that is I ask to protect myself and my home from any person, place, or thing. That covers so many different things. And with that, I imagine a white light coming down as like a pyramid over myself and my home in that way.
So, before you go to bed tonight, imagine you are sleeping in a safe pyramid of light.
Okay, so deep breath, relaxing, running all that through. So our next episode is going to be R for
reincarnation.
Pretty excited about this, actually.
It is a hot topic.
We'll see you next time on All the Woo.
A to Z.